Welcome, everyone. My name is Marika Vanderheel, and I'm the Community Outreach Supervisor here at American Consumer Credit Counseling. You have joined us for our New Year, New Goals. The subtopic of this is budget smarter, save more, and stress less, which we all need in our lives at this point. So, we are American Consumer Credit Counseling. We are a nonprofit credit counseling agency. We're based here in Massachusetts, but we're a national organization. And our main mission really is to empower people with the knowledge and tools to be able to make financial decisions to regain control over the quality of their lives. This part of our kind of mission is financial education. So these monthly webinars really help people and hope to give you the knowledge and tools to be able to make some financial decisions that help you out. If you're looking for a little bit of one-to-one assistance, that is our credit counseling and debt management program. We do offer free and confidential financial assessments. We'll do a deep budget review with you, and then we'll do kind of help you look at your credit profile to determine if you are really struggling with your credit card debt or your personal loan debt. Our debt management program might be a good fit for you. We are also certified nationally as pre and post bankruptcy counselors. So if a debt management program might not work and you just really need that fresh start of bankruptcy, which is very complicated, the courts do require pre and post bankruptcy counseling, and we are certified to help you with that. We're also certified as housing counselors for reverse mortgages. So you can see that counseling is a very big part of our organization, and we're here to help you and give you kind of some of the knowledge and information you can have to be able to make the right financial decision. If you want to know more about our organization, please feel free to check us out at consumercredit.com. If you do want to speak one-on-one with a credit counselor, you can contact us at 866-675-0990. I have the great pleasure to announce two of our credit counselors here with us today, Kyle and Eddie, who will be introducing themselves. Eddie and Kyle?
Yeah, my name is Kyle Icino. I've been here almost 14 years now. I started off as just a credit counselor, and then I was the head of our student loan department. And we did that for a bunch of years before we decided not to do that anymore with all the many changes the government was doing. And now, like my title says, I'm a senior administrative counselor. I also enjoy long walks on the beach, and for all my bookworms attending this, I am thoroughly enjoying the new Onyx Storm book that came out just 2 days ago. So if you're reading that, no spoilers.
And hello, everyone. My name is Eddie Garcia. I'm a credit counselor here with American Consumer Credit Counseling. I've been here for a year and a half already. My background mostly is paralegal. I was doing foreclosure for quite a few years, as well as consumer credit as well, and also a restaurant owner. At one point, one of the things I love about the job is helping people budget, just kind of seeing those numbers, seeing exactly where certain things are going a certain way to be able to help out. And on my spare time, I love paddleboarding, anything outdoorsy as well too. I know in New England we don't have warm weather, but I do my best when we can.
You don't want to go outside right now, Eddie?
No, no, no. A little cold right now. That's it.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Just a tad.
Awesome. All right. So what we're going to be covering today is, budgeting pitfalls and strategies, expenses, pitfalls and strategies, debt pitfalls and strategies. A lot of pitfalls. So those old Atari fans, you're going to love today. Savings, pitfalls, and strategies. And obviously, our goal today is to inform, support, and empower you. All right. So goals, when setting goals, they should be clear, measurable, and realistic. When we do our counseling sessions, we like to say SMART, which stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. It's important to you. Why do you want to achieve it? There's a good quote by Anthony Robbins. People are not lazy. They simply have important goals. That is, goals that do not inspire them. So, for example, for me, My goal this year would have been like to finally eliminate my dang student loans that have been just hovering over my head a little bit. So, you want to set a timeline for that, and then why do you want to achieve it? Because I just don't want to owe them anymore. I think that's a good reason as any.
Exactly.
And then you want to stay accountable, keep records or find support. And we're going to cover that quite a bit in here. I like to use the example. I have a really supportive wife and my 8 year olds, which I learned that when everyone's in on the situation, we kind of work as a team. Um, we call ourselves, my son's name is Parker. We call ourselves Team Parker. We got that nickname because we all do martial arts class together. So when we sit down, usually we try to do it once a quarter to kind of go over like what do the finances look like. Mostly me and the wife, and then we kind of fill the kid in a little bit so we can be like, hey, we might have to cut down on these certain fun things, but we're doing this, and he's completely understandable of that. But he's always like, yeah, Team Parker, let's go.
And that's always a good thing, honestly, just sitting down, especially if you have a child as well too, kind of it's always a good time to just kind of get them involved, with numbers as well too. That can always help out. Even setting some time up, if you can, kind of always looking at those numbers can really make a difference on a monthly basis.
Definitely. Definitely. And some common financial pitfalls that we see: underestimating expenses and not planning. Eddie and I joked earlier because we're here in Massachusetts, and I know we probably have people from all over the country viewing us. Um, Most of us don't when we budget, we're like, oh yeah, it's the summer months, yeah, but we don't know. We don't budget for the oil and the propane and stuff that's
Hmm.
coming this time of year, which those are always fun. So you always want to think of those things and put money aside as the year goes on, even those beautiful summer months. Um, Impulsive spending and living beyond your means. I mean, we're all human. We all do it. We all have our vices that we have to control a little bit. Uh, Over reliance on credit cards. That's definitely a thing, and unfortunately, the credit card debt in the country has skyrocketed. I would say in
Hmm.
the last decade, if not even the last just 5-ish years. And then lack of savings for emergencies, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But don't if you're sitting on here, you're like, man, I got nothing in savings. I mean, it's almost like join the club. Most Americans at this time at this moment, we struggle to have savings because there's always something.
That's true.
All right, so what can you do? So you want a budget to prioritize your spending. You want to have healthy emergency fund. You want to keep the debt low, and you want to set savings goals, which we're going to get into all these in a little bit more detail in just a little bit.
All right. So budgeting to know where every dollar goes. And we'll definitely get into this to kind of have a sense of where exactly that money is going on a month-to-month basis as well. So one of the things you definitely want to do is keep track of every dollar that you can. Sometimes just sort of, old school pen, paper, you can definitely start jotting down, saving receipts as well too. That can definitely help out. You can always use the spreadsheet as well too. You can use, for example, Excel, kind of keep track of what you're spending, what your utilities are, what your bills are. That's going to make it a lot easier at the end of the month when you're just starting to review any of these numbers. And the other thing is a budgeting app. Feel free to download our free CreditU app as well too. It's a great app in which you can download, keep track of all your expenses as well too, especially more in the digital area as well too. But the
Yeah.
biggest common pitfalls with the lack of budgeting, it is easy to lose track of where your money is going. Kind of like what Kyle said, sometimes you are planning on a budget, certain things might happen, a car breakdown, anything like that, that you're just not ready for it. So always, if you can, write down, keep track of everything. That's going to make a lot of sense. When working with clients, people are not surprised at how much they spend on food, food outside the house, entertainment, streaming services. We'll get into that in a little bit as well too. Transportation costs and utilities as well too, especially where you live.
Yeah, we have a great question I see from Meredith. She asked, when I write down what I send, I get mixed up when I use, she takes out cash and uses cash versus using the debit card. How do I keep track of the running total when it's different? The math gets too difficult for me. Yeah, no, that's a good question. What I would do is if you're using cash and you're getting receipts, just kind of hold on to those receipts and then just kind of so Eddie mentioned we have an app, which is great. I use it. I'm also old school, so I live and die by Excel. So I have my entire household, it everything on an Excel spreadsheet. So if I were to do anything with cash, what I would do is try to either write down or make a note, or I would try to later, go in my Excel and just make a little comment saying, I spent this on this and this. That way, everything's all in one thing, so you can kind of, plan accordingly
Yep.
and keep track of it.
Sometimes, yeah. Same thing. I use Excel all the time as well too when going over my numbers. One of the things I do with my wife is we keep those little checks in which you kind of do receipts as well too. And then we'll count our cash to see how much we have at the end of the month. And then if we are spending anything on cash, we'll kind of go at one point during the day and kind of circle, highlight how much it was, just to kind of keep track of that as well too.
Yep.
And then when it comes to determining your monthly in and outs, that's your incomes plus savings, wages, full-time, part-time, tips, social benefits, child support, alimony as well too. Side hustles, you might have some extra part-time as well too. Gifts from family or friends and tax refunds. And also the expenses plus the debt, bank statements, credit card statements, bill statements, loan statements, and also receipts as well too.
One thing I just remember that a buddy of mine does because he likes to use cash a lot too. He's not very trusting with anything digital. So what he'll do is he actually, because if you get all these receipts, you don't want a bunch of receipts in your pocket or in your coat, in your purse or whatever or what have you. So he actually has a box that he has near his computer where he or wherever he keeps like his wallet and things. So at the end of the night,
Okay.
he takes his receipts out and he puts them in the box and then he tries to either once a week or once a month he'll go through them and then he'll kind of update his budget accordingly.
Okay. There's plenty of options out there. It honestly,
100%.
it's what's gonna make sense for you. Honestly, stick to that. That's gonna be the biggest thing, honestly, when keeping
Mhm.
track of these expenses on these.
100%. I agree 100%.
And then when it comes to income flow, there's four categories: your basic needs, debt payment plans, saving plans, and other expenses as well too. Basic needs prioritize. That is your housing, your rent. That is the number one. Your debt payments also. Know also the minimum. Saving plans, build a safety net that can always help out. And we'll kind of break down a little bit as we continue as well too. Anything small goes a long way, honestly. And then rank by what you most value as well too. Housing, groceries, transportation, medicine, and childcare. These are all, the necessities really. When it comes to housing, like I mentioned, rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance. Groceries would be the number two, the food, the pet care, household products, transportation, car loans, gas insurance, also medicine, prescription, copays, and therapy as well too. And it's also very important also to know how much you set aside each month for the basics expenses. It is also a number that we will use later when we talk about how to set up an emergency plan as well too, okay?
And I noticed too in that slide that credit cards aren't listed here at all. And that is another pitfall that I think both Eddie and I see in our day to day here is people prioritize paying the credit cards over the rent, mortgage, utility, car payments, and they're letting
Correct.
those things fall behind and not the credit cards. If you're in that dire situation, we always tell people it's going to stink, but let the credit cards fall behind before you keep the roof over your head, food in your belly, and clothes on your back. Those are the important things. Yes, your credit might take a hit and things like that, but you can always fix that down the road. Whereas if they take your car or kick you out of your home or apartment, that's a little bit tougher to fix that situation.
Completely agree. And then cutting back on little treats as well too. Eating out, and we'll touch base a little bit on this. Same with entertainment. Going out for drinks, lunch. dining out, Uber Eats, DoorDash, that's a number one as well too that many families or clients deal with. Entertainment, this would be the streaming services and music, gamings, household items, home decorations, furniture, bedding, luxury purchases, fashionable clothing, upgrading technology as well too. One of the ones I definitely wanted to kind of focus on is one of the things we have noticed and seen some same with Kyle is sometimes one of those surprising numbers might be just the eating out that you might be doing sometimes. Um, just ordering, let's say, through one of those apps as well too, that can be costly as well with some of those fees as well too. Once you kind of sit down and see those numbers, you might say, "Whoa, this is a really big number." And there's certain ways that you can do. Sometimes, when going to the grocery store, take a closer look. Certain meals, maybe like Costco, BJ's, anything like that can definitely help out quite a bit too. The other major one that we have seen also would be that entertainment streaming services. They tend to really rise up quite a bit throughout a few times throughout the year. Sometimes one of those tricks is when Black Friday comes, if there is a certain app that you definitely want, take a closer look. You might get it on sale as well too for the full year, and that can definitely help you save some money as well too. Um, if let's say you'll kind of skip on it and then at some point you want to, let's say, subscribe later on, you might be paying a little bit more as well too. So kind of prioritize too exactly what you're viewing, what you're seeing to see if you can pause something as well too. And I know one of the things I always tell our clients is sometimes you have to ask yourself what I want or need. Sometimes by answering that, you'll definitely know what that answer is. And I know it's tempting too sometimes.
All right. So let's go over some monitoring spending and prioritizing expenses. So mostly spending triggers, but let's face it, we all do it. I know I do. I do some of these. So love getting the latest and greatest thing when it comes out. I mean, we all have our niche when it comes to that. Me, it's definitely anytime a new video game console gets announced, my wife just kind of has the oh no. So, buy now with credit card, pay later. I mean, we all do that. It's tempting to do it, especially when kids are young, 18, getting out of high school, going into college. I always recommend, secure credit cards are great because it kind of controls. You can't go crazy with secure credit cards. Secure credit cards, for those that don't know, you go to your bank or a bank, you request it, you put the money on and it acts and gets reported like a credit card, the money's already on the card, so you can't go over the limit and things of that nature. So I think that's always a good spending plan. Find yourself eating out more than 4 to 5 times a week. Um, definitely I've been in that situation, if not recently as of last fall. And that's the thing, and that's why we say it's always good to look at your finances and look at the budget every quarter because things change. And I'll
Correct.
disclose, for me, what changed. My son's been doing karate for over a year, and we're there multiple days a week, and they just keep telling my wife and I, like, why don't you guys do it? And then we sat there and we're like, yeah, why don't we? And then they gave us a good deal, and we're like, all right, so now we do that almost 5 times a week. So we found when I started in November that we were definitely getting fast food, ordering a lot more than that. And I know a little bit we'll be talking about remedies, but one of the remedies that we started doing was meal prep, or as I was cleaning out the basement, I'm like, forgot we had a slow cooker. So it's one of those before we go for the day, set everything in there, head out the door, come back, and not only does the house smell great, but dinner time.
No, that's true. That's true.
And then of course a lot of us, there's some of us that like to see, like, oh, what does my neighbor have, like, oh, I want one of those. um I've have some friends that definitely fit into that category where they compare what they have and you want it.
Kind of to circle back a little bit, Kyle, with if you're
Yeah.
finding yourself to eating out quite a bit, there's certain things you can do. You can always head off to YouTube as well too if you enjoy kind of, let's say, prepping a new recipe or something like that. If you're able to just take, let's say, one day out of the week and kind of just sit down, meal prep or anything like that, that can definitely help out quite a bit too, especially if you just don't have the time throughout the week, you might have something already that you prepped already, something new in the freezer that can definitely help out quite a bit too as well.
hmm No, I actually did that recently. I was like trying to meal prep, thinking of and it can be fun too to try something new. So
Correct.
so a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what, I'm going to give a shot at making chicken parm. I'm like, I'm Italian, it's in my blood, it's going to come out great. And now it's great because now my wife and kid loved it, and now it's in our schedule now. So every now
Yep,
and then
that's
they're
good.
like, my kid will be like, hey, are you going to make that yummy chicken again? I'm like, yep, I'll make the yummy chicken.
There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, then yeah, avoiding one-click impulsive shopping. I can luckily say I've avoided that, but my wife, on the other hand, sometimes not so much because the Amazon account is in my name and in my email. So every now and then I'll just be working and I get a little dun dun dun. I'm like, what is she doing?
Notification.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, ah. So, yep, definitely. Um, of course, rationalizing the purchases with, I need that right now. There could be sales, and it's one of those like, do you really need it now? And Eddie was suggesting, Black Friday, a lot of times they're like, hey, and then we all do it. We get the big thing on Black Friday, and then we either don't use it or we sit there and we're like, maybe I shouldn't have gotten that thing. But then, like Eddie was alluding to, there's times where Black Friday is really good. I think like HBO and Disney and some other places there, you could buy a whole year's worth of subscription
Correct.
for really cheap. So basically keeping the eyes out for things that make sense that you're either currently doing, but buying the thing that you don't have and maybe don't need may not make sense at the moment.
Mhm. And the same thing with clothing, for example, like it says there, sometimes it might be on sale. It might be tempting to do that as well too. And that's where the budgeting really plays a key role. If you're able to sit down and really just kind of go over those numbers, you might be surprised at some of those numbers. I know for myself and my wife, Amazon, it's like you said, you have one account and then it's like you'll get a receipt of what you're actually buying. But then when you actually sit down at the end of the month and you kind of see certain things, you're like, maybe I should have just waited a little bit longer for this as well too. So it could be sometimes like an impulse buying. That's why it's such a key to really look at those numbers. It's too easy with Amazon, honestly. Add it to the cart, buy it, and then that's it. And then it gets shipped to your house.
hmm Or, with like the latest technology, usually the first batch of things, there's usually something wrong with them.
That's true. That's true.
Like
At least, yeah, exactly.
like the
Any like
Cybertruck. Yeah.
correct.
Those
Cybertruck, a different year.
Yeah. For those of you that anyone in here that has one, cool. Not for me. Not for me. So yeah, if you can't make ends meet, it's always okay to find help. I know Eddie and I, when we talk to people on a daily basis, they're a little bit nervous to ask for help. And I mean, I've been in a spot where I've needed to ask for help tons of times. I think that's the greatest thing here, that most of us here have been in your shoes once, if not a few times, and we're all human. So, it's always good to reach out and get that friendly hand to help you out. So, most people don't know, if you need help with food, there's SNAP benefits, food pantries. Depending on your religion, some churches and establishments will do donations if you go to them and say, hey, I'm really struggling with XYZ. Utilities, there's, low income heat assistance programs. It's like we joked earlier, because we're both in Massachusetts, there are programs for people struggling to, heat their homes, which is awesome. Phone and internet, there's things like Lifeline support, federal program with lower cost phone and internet. Um, we do deal with people that are hard of hearing here, and most people that might be in that category don't know of I think it's 711, which is a service where people that can call in and they'll help translate or do basically work with you in that regards. Most people don't realize that's out there. Childcare vouchers, and then also with childcare, sometimes you can all get some of that money back, which is good. So you can always check in with that. Student loans, which I joked earlier, because I was the head of that department for a while. Studentaid.gov is the best to go to if you have federal loans. I'll make that disclaimer right now. Uh, fill you can put in post-production, little federal loans. Um, Ever since the COVID deferment ended, they actually did a really good job updating their website for information and things of that nature. For if you have private student loans, your options it varies from person to person. Medical debt, there's Dollar Four is a nonprofit that helps with charity care. If you're concerned about medical bills that are on your credit report and killing you, like my wife when she had her back surgery a few years back, those of you that don't know, the CFPB, and I apologize, I always get their name wrong, this Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, got it. Back on just on January 7th of this year, made an announcement that all medical bill debt is going to be removed from your credit report. So if you still see it on your credit report, give it like a month or two and you should see that removed. So that I think is awesome because I always never agreed when buying a home or car where they're like, oh, look at this medical bill that you struggle to pay. It's like,
Nope, correct. That's true.
all right. So I love this. Tips to help you stay on track. And, some of these tips is to, save yourself a little bit of money. Put your credit cards away and use cash or, debit card also. Because I know nowadays a lot of places that I like to go to, a lot of places are stopped accepting cash. I don't know why. I always thought the general rule was cash was king, but guess not anymore. But yes, you put your credit cards away. I have a safe in my house that I put them in, and it's a hassle to get to it because I also put a bunch of stuff in front of the safe. So that definitely helps the temptation there. Um, Marika knows because we're bookworms. I love my local library. Here in Massachusetts, I live in Auburn, which is west. So we go to Worcester, a big city, big library, almost every Saturday. And you'd be amazed with what you can get at the library. And it's not just books. There's movies, television shows. I mean, nowadays, like in Massachusetts, you can even like electronically rent things. But they also can give you discounts and passes to local museums and things of that nature. There's always cool things for the kids to do. I know every Saturday for ours, our local dog shelter brings in dogs, so the dogs can have, people to play with and pet and stuff. It is awesome. Um, Removing the temptation for, on your apps, putting credit cards and things on there. I never do that. I'm always a big fan when I'm filling out an app and it's like, oh, do you want to put your payment info just in case and things of that nature? It's like, no. And then for anybody on here that's parents and you have kids like mine who are now also growing up as gamers, um, go into any, Xbox, Nintendo, Sony settings, and you can always program it where they can't buy anything until you approve of it, which is great. Because, I don't know about you guys, my son's big into Roblox, and Roblox has a lot of microtransactions. Basically, they want you to buy something. So
Mm.
in case he clicks on it, instead of me finding out that he spent $400 in 5 minutes, I get a thing on my phone that goes, do you
A
want this
little
to go
warning.
through? Yeah, and I go, no.
Declined. See,
Yeah,
that's also
I
great. Yeah.
yeah. I can also set time limits, so if he's playing for like more than a half hour, this thing just shuts off. And he's like, oh, I'm like, yep, you're done.
And that's
Uh,
good.
oh, definitely. Eddie, you mentioned earlier meal planning. I found, and again, it comes back to just if you have a family or a support group, just keeping everybody involved. So, and we actually like to make it fun too. So usually on Sundays is our fun day with the laundry. We do a grocery shopping, but we also meal plan. So we sit down, we go, okay, what do we want to do for lunches and dinners? And depending if like my wife or son makes a suggestion for, oh, let's do this for dinner. Okay, cool. Maybe if I buy a little bit extra for the ingredients, I can turn that into XYZ for the next night or leftovers for lunch for the next day. For those of you that maybe don't like cooking, and can afford it in your budget, there's things like meal prep plans. I always can't. Hello Fresh, there we go, something like
HelloFresh is
that.
one.
Because though what's great about that, because I've tried that for a little bit, is they'll send you exactly what you need, so your fridge isn't full of extra ingredients that will just go bad, make your fridge smell, and you got to throw it out anyway. Um, And I'm a big fan too of thrift stores. I mean, this shirt that I'm wearing, I got at a Savers.
There you
And
go.
and what's great and what people don't realize because they think like, oh man, Savers or like thrift stores in general, I don't know. People don't realize like when things go out of style or if a place like Kohl's, for example, because that's head out my shirt. If they're like, we have way too much inventory, just let be gone with it. When I was in Savers looking for work shirts, I found this with a Kohl's tag still tacked onto it. The Kohl's tag said $75, but Savers was selling this for $10. So I'm like, all right.
That's a
So
big discount right there.
yeah, so people don't, especially like when the seasons change, places like Kohl's, Macy's, and all these department stores, they're going to give their stuff to thrift stores. So, you
And
know,
that's a great tip, Kyle. That's another thing that I've noticed. Sometimes when you go out, especially now in January, some of that older clothing from last year might be on sale too. On
mhm.
occasions, I've actually ended up buying summer clothes ahead of time at a really low discount. That can definitely help out quite a bit too. It's just kind of keeping an eye out on what's on sale and then really making sure that it does make sense. And I
Exactly.
and I also wanted to go back into the library real quick because the library has so many amazing things. They actually have something called Library of Things. I love the outdoors and I wanted a GoPro really badly. But because I said, you know what? Let me step back and then see if, and I found the Library of Things. I was able to rent it actually for 3 weeks, test it out, and kind of get a sense of is this something that I definitely want to buy in the future as well too? And I ended up buying a different model, but that did help quite a bit too because it put me on pause. I was able to try a device out for a few weeks, test it, see if I wanted it, did my research, and by the time I was ready to buy, I was ready with the funds as well too. So the library of things, again, that can be a big saver. They have kitchen things as well too, KitchenAid. If you want to
Mhm.
bake or something like that, you can definitely try that out for a few weeks and see if that's something of your liking as well.
Yeah, and all libraries are different, but I mean, most of them, especially in my neighborhood, because I mean, especially if you have kids, it is expensive to go to a movie
Mhm.
nowadays. But every now and then, the library will be like, "Hey, this movie that recently came out to DVD, Blu-ray, and all that, we're gonna have a free showing for it." It's like that is awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, so always checking out that, it's a great resource.
And now tackling your debt. And this is one of the hardest things that we'll kind of break down. You have your house and the vehicle, you have the student loans as well too, you have the medical and utilities as well too, credit cards, personal loans, payday loans, and store credits. Definitely with the credit cards, what you want to make sure is that you're able to at least pay the minimum and even try to pay a little bit more as well too. That's always going to help you out, especially once you're done, for example, with any sort of promotion on a credit card as well too. Always paying that extra is always going to help you avoid that at all costs at the end completely.
And then just real quick on that slide too, Eddie, because with payday loans, for those of you that either have them or have seen these ads, we always suggest, try to avoid those out of any debt. If you come to these webinars, things of that nature, we talk about student loans, credit cards, and this and that. Payday loans to me are like they're the devil. You
Hmm.
want to avoid them at all costs.
And the main reason is that interest rate is basically like a shark interest. There's no law, honestly, just limiting how much that can be. You might just take it out, and at the end of the day, you're gonna end up paying a lot more than what you actually took. So it's very dangerous. Do your research as well too. I always tell our clients avoid it at all costs if you can.
Yeah, so what Eddie's talking about there is, credit cards, unfortunately, like department store cards are averaging anywhere from like 26 to 29% right now. Payday loans are averaging about 500%. In
Hmm.
some states, like here in Massachusetts, where you can get them now, they're very heavily regulated, thank God. But the danger and pitfall is in if you live in a state where they're legal, and if certain states that have Native American reservations, some of them offer payday loans. And because, with the government, things are a little bit more loosey goosey there, they charge as high as 1900% on
That's
those loans.
insane,
And with
insane, insane.
and with those, because you're technically getting it from a reservation, there's nothing you can do besides trying to pay that back. So be very careful of payday loans.
And then with a high interest rate, this is more of a breakdown as well too. You can see the account summary, what your previous balance is. As you can see, the total amount received, 33. But then again, that interest rate, 1993 plus the 1307 towards the balance, that's going to equal that. If you're able to, always make sure you're able to at least just make a little bit more than the minimum payment. A lot is over reliance on credit cards. Carrying high balances with high interest rates can mean less money in your pocket as well too at the end of the month as well. That's why we always suggest, a lot with that budgeting to really see how much money you might have at the end of the month as well too, in which you can kind of tackle some of the certain debt and make a little bit more additional payments towards them as well too.
All right. So, of course, we're going to talk about keeping savings on track here. And I can't stress this enough. What we're about to talk about, everybody's different. And then, of course, life happens. For those of you that might be in the South, there was the hurricanes. For those
Hmm.
that are out west, there's the fires and things of nature. There's always something that goes on. Like here, like where Eddie and I live in Massachusetts with the snow and the rain. If you own a home like I do, once in a while, your basement's probably going to get flooded, or something goofy is going to happen. What experts recommend is it's ideal to try to save 20%. And you want to put 10% maybe in the savings goal and 10% towards your debt payments. If you have higher debt, maybe you want to do 5% savings goal, 15% towards the debt. And then, there's also just whatever works. I mean, that's the one thing that I love about my job is when people are calling asking for help, it's almost like a puzzle, and it's always great to figure out not only what's going on, but figure out what's best for you. Because there's companies that just do the same thing. It's like, oh, we're just going to recommend this every time. Just recommend this. It's like not that doesn't work for everybody. Everybody is going to be different, and it's also what are your goals? What do you want to do? So there might be the person that maybe they have a really good savings retirement fund right now, but they have a boatload of debt. So maybe not knowing that, hey, one of the strategies might be just pause on this right now, take care of this. This might take maybe 2 years to take care of, but then when it's paid off, all that money you free up can then go back into this basket. Um, so that's why, there's the idea, but everyone's going to be different.
Hey guys, I've got a great question from Victoria, and I thought I would put it out because I think it would be great for everybody to kind of hear this. So, Victoria's question is, what's your opinion or recommendation on debt relief programs? For example, there are ads about kind of national debt relief. Like when you go on the internet and you're kind of looking at kind of that umbrella term, can you guys talk a little bit about the umbrella term of like debt relief?
Oh,
And
yes, I can.
then a little bit about like how do we know who we can trust? If you could unpack that just a little bit, just a quick answer to that question would be fantastic.
Sure. Eddie, you mind if I take this and then you can add
Yep, go
anything?
for it.
Uh,
Yep, go for it,
so,
Kyle.
so debt relief or debt settlement companies, we always say be very careful of. Um, and you'll know, like we do debt management, debt settlement. The difference is debt management, you pay all of it back. Debt settlement is if they say you'll pay some of it back. And I'll be as quick as I can with this. So the real reason or the right way to do it is a settlement. And let's say you owe $10,000, that account, first and foremost, it has to be in collections. So if any of you deal with these debt relief companies and all your debt's current, they're not going to tell you. It's going to be in like the Apple, script hidden somewhere, and you have to catch that. So the right way to do a settlement or debt relief, you have to let the account go to be charged off or in collections. If you were to call, say, like a collection agency and they're like, "Hey, you owe 10,000. Hey, would you guys settle for 5,000, 50% off?" Sure. Most of the time, I would say 95% of the time, they want that money right then and there. Depending on how much you owe, they might say, "Give me half now, half next month." Dunzo. But when you pull that off, it'll show on your credit report that you settled and you paid less than what you owed. And depending on your state, what you didn't pay back, you have to then claim it come tax time. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't have 5,000 to give. That's where these debt relief companies come in. So they'll say, "Oh, I can make that same deal happen. Just give me $150 a month." What they usually don't tell you is they're going to take your money, put it in some magical shoebox, and
Hmm.
they're going to sit on it. When you sign the contract, they're going to change your name and phone number so that all the bad phone calls go to them. Because, like I said, they'll enroll you if your debt's current, and they're purposely not going to pay and let everything go to collection. So they're going to tank your credit. Now, the other issue is it's going to take time if you only give them $100 a month for that 100 to turn into 5,000. Your creditors are kept in the dark this entire time. So if it takes too long, they might come after you. Um, so yeah, we typically like to avoid it. And yeah, sorry, I can't stand these companies. That's
It's
why I get so emotional because I'm like I want to be like that's someone's falling. I just want to like Spider-Man be like, no, don't do
Well,
it.
the biggest thing, like you said, Kyle, and I always tell the clients, you have to be careful because as they're trying to negotiate that debt as well too, on occasions you actually might get, sent to court regarding these collections as well too. I think that's the biggest as well too. Apart from it's going to hit your credit as well too, but now you have to also deal with going up to court and kind of going over everything, with the judge as well too.
Getting back to this. So when you're building an emergency fund, let's say you start with like $300 to $500. You want to basically try to put 3 months of your living expenses behind. That's what experts recommend. I'll admit it, I don't have that. I have maybe a month and a half put aside. Because again, there's always something that happens. But again, having something is better than having nothing. That's why we
Hmm.
always tell our clients that call, just start with something small, and then you can always stop at 6 months, because at that point you're good. Because if God forbid if you lose your job, studies have found that usually you can bounce back within like a 6 month period of time.
And it's like you said, Kyle, anything small goes a very long way as well too. Sometimes it's just the habit of actually having something available at the end of the month and just kind of putting that away too becomes more of a habit. And I always say it's always a healthy habit if you're able to put some money away as well.
And then of course you can look into building a revolving savings fund. Um, you can put a little money aside each month to cover costs. You can plan out your high spending months and start saving 3 to 4 months ahead. Um, Again, with me having a kid, when he was younger, daycare. Those of you that know, though that expenses was a nightmare. And then of course, there's summer camps and things of that nature. Now that we're all, kind of in this economy where both parents are working nowadays. So it's planning for like hey, I know this is going to happen when it's the summertime, so it's planning that ahead. And how do you plan for that ahead? Well, if you know that it's going to cost X amount of dollars, you just divide that by the year, and then okay, to make it easier on myself, I should be putting X amount into this account. And I'll steal a great tip that Eddie and we have a coworker named Kevin, and love you, Kevin. What he does is amazing. And I actually started doing this myself. What he does is, he banks at his bank, and then he opened up another bank account. And what he does is he transfers those funds to that account and leaves that account locked in a drawer, that debit card. And he doesn't put the bank app or anything on his phone, so he's not tempted to use that cash at all. And then when the time comes that he needs those funds, he then goes to that bank, has it transferred to the bank that he uses. So basically, he's forcing himself to go into an actual bank and deal with them rather than having access to apps and things of that nature. And when he told me that, I'm like, it just blew my mind. I thought
It's
it was
great,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Self-control.
yeah, yep. It was great. So yeah, so breaking down what we talked about earlier, the SMART goal example, you know, specific exactly what you need to do. In this case, if we're using like a car, things of that nature. Buy a new car in 2 to 3 years and put down a $4,000 payment. That might be the specifically what do you want to do. You could break it down into smaller steps. There's trade-ins, which can save you some money and things of that nature. how to make it happen, how you can change your spending, and then of course time based. And you want to set a time frame and things of that nature to set it. And so for this example, like, oh, I want to get a new car by November 2028. It's okay if your goals change or if you have to push it down.
Mm.
The thing is just not giving up on your goals. If it's something that you truly need, truly have to have, again, life's going to happen. It's just, I like to call them detours. It's just a detour to get to your goal. So just a few final thoughts, always good to write out your goals and plans, keep, your supportive group in the loop, budget, save, and pay on the debt. Keep yourself accountable, record keeping, or, like I said, the support group is great. And then celebrate the small wins. And again, forgive yourself for setbacks, because again, we're all human. We're all gonna do it, but and that's why for me and my household, that's why I look at everything quarterly, because if something's going on, you can catch those things that you're doing then instead of waiting the whole year and be like, oh well, I guess I'll do better next year.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah, I think, the little slide that we have, like the little figure we have attached to this was something I actually had in my classroom, just to kind of keep reminded of, like, if you're happy with your situation, just kind of keep doing whatever you're doing. If you're not happy, like, you have to just change something about your mindset, change something about your habits, change something about what you're doing, whether it's like, and it can just be, instead of trying to overwhelm ourselves with a ton of different goals or a ton of different things that we're trying to do. That's why we go back to the point of, like, a goal will stick if it's something that you value. So if you have been keeping that same New Year's resolution or financial goal for the last 2 or 3 years, and you really haven't activated it, sit down and really kind of have that conversation with yourself about, why do I want this goal? Why is this important to me? Put that really in front of yourself of, like, what do you value about that, and what might change? What do you need to do to kind of take those steps? And kind of as Eddie, thank you, Eddie, and thank you, Kyle, for really kind of unpacking a lot of these. The biggest thing here is just really to just know who you are, know your spending, know some of the things about yourself, know what works for you. If a paper budget or a spreadsheet budget or a budgeting app, that might be the one change that you make is how you're going to be budgeting or what you're going to be doing. And that's a great first step. So just kind of, again, celebrate small wins, forgive yourself for any kind of setbacks, and just know that kind of this path is one step at a time. But what we want to say is, if you're really struggling with either your budget or with your debt, our credit counselors and we have two fantastic credit counselors. I actually pulled Eddie off the phone this morning. He was like, I haven't had lunch yet. So I was like, that's fine. You got to come do a webinar for me. So um, um, we have fantastic credit counselors here at ACCC, and they really will take the time with you to listen to your situation, to try to unpack what's going on, non-judgmental, compassionate, to really help you get started with some of your New Year's resolutions, whether it's to tackle your debt or kind of just get yourself back on track. But thank you so much for joining us today. If you do like these webinars, we hope you do, and we hope some of you have come back again. We hold these webinars twice a month. So our February webinar series, on February 4th, we're going to do something called Maximize Your Money, where that one small section where we talked about kind of cutting some of your expenses, like the library, which Kyle and I love, and meal planning, which Eddie and I love. Both of those, I'm going to unpack that a lot more deeply in that webinar. The webinar is just going to be focused on this. I'm also going to talk about a couple strategies about boosting kind of our income, bringing kind of a little more cash flow into our lives. What are some of the things that we can do? And then finally, we're doing some series where in 2024, we looked at kind of one person, one budget, how to kind of survive on a single budget. But in this next month, what we're really going to look at is family finances. So it's, again, Kyle's given some examples of, like, having a partner and having children and really keeping those lines of communication open. what does that look like? And we're really going to unpack that in our February webinar. You can scan the QR code here. It will take you right to our registration site. I'm also going to put something in the chat for you as well, so you can check out our next webinar series and sign up for them now. And then last but not least, our fantastic webinar presenters here, and Phil, who's always great in the background answering questions and making sure that we have everything that we need set up. But if you'd like to give us some feedback, we have a Jot form survey, and you can kind of give us feedback on this webinar. If there are any webinar topics, we're always looking for webinar topics. If there's any webinar topics that you'd like to have us cover, there's a little section where you can say, would you please unpack this? And we'll see if we can get it on the plate for you. And then last but not least, if you want to stay in touch with us and get on our monthly MoneyWise newsletter, you can just give us some of your contact information and we'll put you on our newsletter list.